Welcome to the Deep Dive. We cut through the noise to get to the heart of complex stories. And today, we're diving into a really significant legal decision out of Pakistan. It's got some major implications for one of the key political parties there. We're talking about the Pakistan Supreme Court's latest verdict on this reserved seats case. So the core news we're unpacking today is this. Pakistan Supreme Court has just, dismissed petitions from the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. You probably know them as PTI. And this effectively means they're out of the running for some crucial reserve seats, both in the national and provincial assemblies. We're going to guide you through, exactly what this ruling means, how it all unfolded, and the pretty intense reactions that have followed. Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Friday, June 27, 2025, the Supreme Court's constitutional bench delivers its verdict, and the bottom line, they rejected PTI's petitions in this reserve seats case. The direct result is, pretty stark. PTI is now ineligible for 39 reserve seats.
Right, and to really get the weight of that, you need to understand what these reserve seats actually are. In Pakistan's system, they aren't just, extra seats on the side. They're specifically set aside. The idea is to guarantee representation for certain groups, typically women and non-Muslim minorities, who might otherwise struggle to get elected directly. They're really vital because they directly increase a party's total numbers, their strength, their influence in the legislature. It affects everything, voting power on laws, who gets key committee roles. So losing them, it's a significant hit to a party's overall standing.
Definitely. But to really understand this decision, we kind of have to rewind a bit, don't we? This isn't the first time these seats have been fought over. It's been quite a journey to get here.
Oh, absolutely. This verdict is really the culmination of, a legal roller coaster is probably the best way to put it. It kicked off back in March 2024. The Peshawar High Court actually dismissed a petition from the Sunni Ittihad Council, the SIC. Now, the SIC was the party that PTI candidates had essentially joined forces with after the election.
Right.
And they were challenging the Election Commission's decision, the ECP, which had rejected their claim for these reserved seats. The ECP basically said the SIC wasn't entitled because of, and this is the quote, non-curable legal defects in how they submitted their lists.
Okay, so the ECP ruled against them. The High Court agreed.
Exactly. And as a result, those reserved seats, the ones SIC-PTI wanted, were handed out to other parties. PMLN and the PPP were the main beneficiaries there.
But then didn't the Supreme Court step in and sort of flip things around? At least for a while.
Precisely. That's the next twist. You fast forward to July 13th, 2024. And the Supreme Court, in what was called a unique majority verdict at the time, actually declared PTI eligible for those same reserve seats.
Wow.
Yeah, it was seen as a huge lifeline, bringing them back into the parliamentary game in a big way. But, and this is crucial, that July ruling, it wasn't actually implemented by the National Assembly. And the Election Commission, the ECP, also had some, let's say, significant objections. So that's why we ended up with these review petitions being filed against the Supreme Court's own July decision. They were filed by the PMLN, the PPP, and the ECP itself. So what we saw yesterday, this big verdict, was the court essentially reconsidering its own previous judgment.
That's fascinating. That context is so important. Okay, so let's go inside the courtroom for this latest verdict, the one from Friday. The bench hearing the case, it started with 11 members, right? Yeah. Led by Justice Imran Khan. But there was some drama right off the bat, wasn't there?
There really was. Pretty early on, one of the judges, Justice Salahuddin Panjwar, actually recused himself. He stepped down from the bench. This happened after the SIC's lawyer, Hamid Khan, objected to any judges who joined the Supreme Court after a specific constitutional amendment, the 26th.
Okay.
Justice Panjwar confirmed he was one of those judges, and he made a point of saying that public trust in the judiciary is crucial and that it's important that no party questions the composition of the bench. It definitely set a tense atmosphere from the start.
And I read that his recusal led to some pretty stern comments from the remaining judges towards the lawyer.
It did, yeah. After Justice Panjwar left, Justice Imran apparently said to Hamid Khan something like, "There is no need for appreciation. This is the result of your conduct." Pretty sharp. And then another judge, Justice Mazahir Ali Akbar Nafi, added even more directly, "We're listening to you out of respect. Otherwise, we were not bound to do so. Don't misuse the opportunity you've been given." So you can really feel the high stakes in those exchanges.
Absolutely.
And Hamid Khan wasn't done. He then tried to object to the new 10-member bench itself, arguing, how can a 10-member bench review a 13-member bench's decision?
Right, because originally there were 13, but 2 had stepped back earlier, even before this hearing.
Exactly. But Justice Aminuddin just dismissed that objection and told him to get on with his arguments.
Gives you a real sense of the tension in that room. So just as pound wears out, we have a 10-member bench. How did the final vote actually break down?
Well, this is really interesting. The breakdown was quite clear. A 7-3 majority. 7 judges voted to accept the review petitions, basically agreeing with the ECP and the other parties. That included the presiding judge, Justice Aminuddin Khan, Justice Musarat Halali, Naeem Akhtar Afghan, and 4 others.
Okay, 7 for accepting the review.
Right. And only 3 judges rejected the petitions. That was Justice Jamal Khan Mandokail, Justice Muhammad Ali Mazhar, and Justice Syed Hassan Azhar Rizvi. So a 7-judge majority in a case like this, one that's so politically sensitive, well, that's pretty decisive. It really solidifies the court's position this time around.
And the actual legal effect is huge, too. The Supreme Court basically reversed itself, didn't it? They upheld that original Peshawar High Court decision from March 2024, and critically, they set aside their own ruling from July 2024.
That's exactly right. The court's short order puts it very plainly. It says, for detailed reasons to be recorded later, by majority of 7, all civil review petitions are allowed, and the impugned majority judgment dated July 12, 2024 is set aside. And then it continues. As a consequence thereof, civil appeals number 333 of 2024 and 334 of 2024 filed by the SIC are dismissed, and the judgment rendered by the Peshawar High Court is restored.
So back to square one, essentially upholding the PHC decision.
Pretty much. Although it's worth noting, Justice Mandokail, one of the dissenters, had a slightly more nuanced position. He partly allowed the review for some of the seats, the ones beyond the initial 39, but he stuck to his original view on those first 39.
Interesting detail.
Yeah, but his partial dissent didn't change the overall outcome for PTI losing those seats. The majority carried the day.
Okay, and beyond just ruling on the seats, the court also gave the Election Commission, the ECP, a specific job to do now, right? Something about a de novo exercise. What does that actually mean for you listening? What does the ECP have to do now? It sounds quite technical.
It does sound technical, but it's important. The de novo exercise basically means start afresh, or from the beginning. The court has told the ECP to re-examine everything, the nomination papers, declaration forms, any other relevant documents for all 80 of these returned candidates involved. They have to do it as if no decision had been made before, specifically focusing on verifying the candidates' affiliations.
Affiliations, meaning which party they truly belong to.
Exactly. To make sure the reserved seats are allocated strictly according to the law and the rules. It's like hitting a reset button on verifying who gets what based on party links.
And they have a deadline.
They do. 15 days from when they get the court order, which, isn't a huge amount of time for that kind of detailed work. It'll be a challenge for the ECP.
Right. Now, obviously, this huge legal decision landed like a bombshell, especially for the PTI.
Yeah.
Their reaction was, well, immediate and pretty forceful.
Oh, absolutely. It was swift and stinging. The party took to X, formerly Twitter, and called the decision, quote, the funeral of constitutional, judicial traditions and justice.
Wow. Strong words.
Very strong. And their chairman, Barrister Gohar Khan, he echoed that. He expressed deep disappointment, calling it a huge injustice and the violation of the Constitution. He even made a comment suggesting political influence, saying, for the PTI, it seems that the shadow of Qazi Faiz Essa still lurks in the Supreme Court. That's a reference to the former Chief Justice.
That's a serious accusation to level at the court, and he was specific about what they felt they lost.
He was. Gohar Khan stated very clearly that PTI deserved 78 reserved seats, in total 66 for women, 11 for non-Muslims. He said, they belong to the PTI and it is their right. He also defended their move to join the Sunni Ittihad Council, the SIC, saying it was done as per the affidavit by the ECP for an independent candidate to join a political party, basically arguing they followed the rules.
In their next steps, is there any further legal avenue?
According to Gohar Khan, no. He said there is no further legal recourse. But he immediately added, but we will protest the decision in the assemblies and all forums against this injustice. So political protest is the plan.
And other PTI figures weighed in, too.
Yes, another prominent leader, Salman Akram Raja, he posted on X as well. He argued the party only got votes because we were contesting under Imran Khan's banner, and that to deny the existence of PTI is to deny the people their voice.
The language here, funeral of justice, shadow over the court, denying the people their voice, it's incredibly potent, isn't it? What's the significance of using rhetoric like that?
It's highly significant. This isn't just legal disagreement, it's deeply political rhetoric. Using such strong, almost, inflammatory language serves a clear purpose. It aims to challenge the very legitimacy of the court's decision in the public eye, especially among their supporters. It frames it not as a legal outcome, but as a political injustice.
Right.
It's a way to rally the base, absolutely, and to try and shape the public narrative around the judiciary. Whether it succeeds or not, it certainly highlights the intense political stakes and potentially deepens polarization around state institutions.
Yeah, you can really see how intertwined the legal and political spheres are here.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we sort of wrap up this deep dive, let's bring it all together. What does this really mean for you, for our listeners, and for Pakistan's political scene going forward?
Well, the most immediate thing to grasp, I think, is the tangible impact on PTI's power. Fewer seats means less influence, simple as that, in both the national and provincial assemblies. The balance of power definitely shifts. But more broadly, this whole saga is back and forth between the courts, the ECP, the political parties. It really throws a spotlight on how Pakistan's democratic structures function, the pressures they face. It forces you to think about representation, who gets to represent whom and how. And it highlights the tension around what PTI calls the voice of the people versus, let's say, the strict application of electoral laws and procedures.
It's definitely been a deep dive, hasn't it? Into a really complex legal knot with huge political threads attached. It shows how one court ruling can echo back through months, even years, of legal fights and really reshape the political landscape.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought for you to consider is how these kinds of battles over election rules, over party status, over who gets seats aren't unique to Pakistan. They happen in democracies everywhere, reflecting ongoing challenges. So perhaps think about what this particular case suggests about that delicate balance, that tension between, the letter of the law, the legal technicalities, and what might be seen as the broader political will or mandate. How does that tension play out, and what are the consequences when one side prevails over the other?